Hey, the name's Cruel. That's King Rob Rule, and welcome to this video where I'll be talking about my first impressions of Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. Now, you may be thinking, Cruel, the game has been out for around 3 weeks at this point, and most content creators have put out a review by now. What's the hold up for your first impressions of the game? Well, there's a couple reasons for this, and I'll try to answer them as briefly as possible. If you want to skip this, just click ahead to the next chapter in the video. First of all, as the title suggests, I am playing through the game as a completionist. Now obviously, I'm not doing a pure completionist run. That would be just plain insanity in any Monster Hunter game. But what I mean by this is that I intend to complete all the quests, craft all the armor available, and make at least one weapon for each monster in the game. This has been an extremely time-consuming process, and despite playing pretty much every waking moment of my free time, I've only defeated the final boss recently. And with that being said, I had to bend my own rules a little bit to do so. Around the point I hit MR5, I learned MR doesn't accumulate until after you beat the final boss, and I thought if I'm going to be grinding monsters for armor, I may as well let my MR progress in the background. My second reason for the delay of my first impressions is that I'm not a big content creator. I'm not in the Capcom creator program either. I don't get the game early. Well, Australia technically gets it before most of the world, but I get it the same date. With that taken into account, and playing the way I play, it only makes sense it took a little while longer to put a video out. But I hope this video will have some kind of unique offering due to those factors. I don't imagine many reviewers of the game played the way I play, so I think my perspective might add value to those who enjoy playing Monster Hunter at a slower pace. So for all you Monster Hunter fans out there that like to savor the game like a fine wine, I got you. And with all that being said, let's just dive right into my first impressions of Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. If I had to put my experience of Sunbreak into one word, it would be amazing. There, you got your answer. You can click off the video now. I'm joking, of course. Please like, comment, and subscribe. But to elaborate further, Sunbreak takes everything that base Rise was and just makes it better in pretty much every conceivable way. The switch skill swap system is one of the standout features of the game, and it really makes me wonder why this wasn't included to begin with. There's part of me that is suspicious that they deliberately hold back the best stuff for Master Rank, just so we have these kinds of reactions to the supposedly new content. Either way, I'm here for it. It's been a fantastic way to keep weapons feeling more versatile than ever. Some weapons benefit from it more than others. Take the dual blades for example, where you can set one set of switch skills to aerial style combat and the next set to a faster, more grounded approach. However, I'm sure true masters of any weapon can find creative ways to make switch skill swapping work in a variety of situations. As someone who plays all the weapons, it's been hard for me to really dive super deep into the most efficient builds for switch skills, but in time I'm sure I'll get there for sure. But so far, my favourite weapons to play have been Insect Glaive, Lance, Charge Blade, and Sword and Shield. And yes, you heard that correctly. Lance is up there as one of my favourites. I never thought I'd say that after the internet's reaction to Lance's switch skill reveals, but here we are. It's not necessarily the new switch skills that make Lance feel so great, it's the adjustments to the weapon as a whole that just make it feel more powerful. For starters, it seems it's much easier to land insta-blocks. I haven't seen any patch notes or frame data, but from someone who played a decent chunk of Lance in base Rise, I definitely noticed a difference. Couple that with what appears to be a significant damage boost, and just like that, Lance reclaims its spot as the king of counters, just like Adept Lancing in GU. I swear, I consistently hit for around 500 damage on successful insta-block counters just with MR3 equipment. Speaking of counters, I feel like I should address the gamut in the room and mention the longsword nerfs. I have heard so many people who have jumped ship from longsword because it got nerfed. Normally, I'm super supportive of people wanting to learn new weapons because that's how I find enjoyment in the series. That is, by playing a variety of different weapons and playstyles. But I am aware that there are a lot of people out there that don't play this way and just stick to one weapon. And of course, many of them are most likely concerned longsword players. Let me just tell you that longsword is still extremely strong. I'll let you guys play with it to get a feel for it. I encourage you to try all the switch skills, especially the new Sacred Sheath that is available from MR1. I think Capcom just wanted users to be less counter-focused with longsword and more aggressive with offensive tactics, but that's just my interpretation with the weapon balancing. Feel free to tell me how wrong I am. While we're talking about switch skills, I just want to touch on my thoughts about how they were introduced within the progression of the game. I think they could have been drip-fed to you over a more consistent time span. Let me explain. You get the ability to switch skills after your first hunt of Sunbreak, and you are given one brand new switch skill. At first, it's kinda neat, and you think, cool, I can't wait to unlock more, especially the ones I tried in the demo. Well, if you play anything like me, you're fresh out of luck because you don't get any more until MR4. For me, this was almost 2 weeks of constant playing without any new switch skills. Now, in the grand scheme of things, you could probably blast through the content doing the bare minimum. You could probably get to MR4 in a day or two, but for someone who likes to get the most out of the game, this was probably one of the most disappointing aspects. I feel like the Monster Hunter team was almost encouraging players to blast ahead, ignoring all the content that they provided for us in order to experience all the new features. I have no idea why they decided to just dump a whole bunch of switch skills on you so close to the end of the game. It is implementations of progression like this that make people gain the perspective that Monster Hunter lacks content. Frankly, it frustrates me. Sure, you could argue that you could go back and do those extra quests later, but that completely misses the point of the Monster Hunter experience. Those early monsters are only ever challenging on any level the first time you encounter them. Going back to them once you finish the game is trivial, because you are typically wearing overpowered gear for those monsters, and you are used to fighting monsters that are much harder. This is why I play through the game at such a slow pace. There is only ever one point that the early game content is a rewarding experience. I think this is a good segue into talking about my experience of crafting all the armor in the game. So, the million-dollar question, is it worth doing? Yes. And not just for maniacs like me. To my pleasant surprise, just about every armor set in Sunbreak has appealing skills, and when it doesn't, more often than not, you have more than enough slots to fit in whatever skills you enjoy, and even more. This was a fantastic choice by Capcom, which I am sure will encourage many players that are set on the meta skills of the game to try more comfy quality of life skills that they may have never considered before. I think this is nothing but a positive thing. The main armor set for most monsters have been so flexible for skills that I haven't even bothered with mixed sets at this point. All you need is some half-decent talismans and decorations. Almost any armor set is viable at its equivalent point in the game. Now obviously, when you craft every armor set in the game, there's going to be a bunch that are never touched, but to me it's more of a box ticking thing. But with that being said, you'll be surprised with how good many of these sets are. Next, I want to talk about the follower quests briefly. So follower quests are the new single player option for Master Rank where you can get various NPCs to come with you on hunts. When I first heard about this, I didn't expect much, but for anyone that has played video games for any amount of time at all, you would know computer AI isn't the most reliable, at least when cooperating with you in any objective-based game. However, I was pleasantly surprised with how good these followers are, so much so that I would rather hunt with these guys than with randoms. There have been times when the followers will actually, get this, stop attacking when a monster has been slept and actually contribute planting bombs. Sometimes they'll even be nice enough to wyvern ride a monster from another area to help out with the fight. Not only are they useful, but they all have distinct personalities that are interesting and entertaining. They even made unique interactions between different followers, which are consistently amusing. Definitely don't sleep on these quests. Oh, and I should also mention that the follower quests also unlock unique weapons and armor that give completionists like me some more fun time and experimentation with the game. As for maps, we have the returning map of the jungle, which many of us experienced in the demo, which is amazing, super nostalgic, but still feels fresh. The new Citadel map I am also a fan of. It has a unique layout and is one of the most fun maps to explore. I'll talk more about them in my review of Sunbreak, But what stands out to me most about the maps, and not just the new ones, are the new endemic life and environmental traps. There are creatures on walls called ensnaring life you can wallbang monsters into for additional damage and elemental blights. The new marionette spider also allows for wallbanging without wyvern riding, very similar to clutch claw wallbanging in Iceborne. However, you can miss easily, and there are only ever 2 marionette spiders on the map, so it feels like a more strategic choice to use them rather than being a spammable option like wallbanging was in Iceborne. Finally, and most importantly, are the monsters. All the new monsters and subspecies introduced that I have fought so far have been excellent additions. Not only that, but the base rise monsters are much faster and have been given some new moves to make their fights feel fresh. So don't sleep on the base rise monster fights. I encourage trying them all at least once. Even Royal Ludroth gave me a surprise at his speed and aggression, so watch out. My favourite fights in the game have been the 3 lords, which definitely earn their title, and of course the fated 4 duo Mizutsune and Astalos stand out as well as ever. The lance matchup against Nagakuga has also been one of the most satisfying fights in the game so far, and I just can't get enough of it, despite not even wanting much of Nagakuga's equipment. Sadly, many of the new monsters are pushed back to the back half of the game, so again, if you play like me, you might feel like the game is holding back on you. Again, it's a case of hitting MR4 and having almost every monster you've been waiting for hitting you at once. I'm not going to reveal anything about the final boss, but just let me say, it's probably my favourite final boss experience of Monster Hunter yet. If you can get a group of friends together to complete it, I highly recommend doing so. My girlfriend and I were going absolutely wild the whole fight, and she's not even as big of a Monster Hunter fan as me, so that's saying something. Definitely look forward to it. I've just barely hit the so-called endgame of Sunbreak, but I am still working on creating armor sets from MR5, so I haven't really dived into it yet. Plus, I still have a bunch of hub and follower quests to complete, so there's plenty for me to do before that. But I do have some advice for prospective players that haven't played the game yet. If you want to experience the best parts of Sunbreak as soon as possible, and you don't care for hanging around making lots of equipment, make the first armor set that appeals to you, an MR weapon, and just hightail it to MR4. The game truly hits its stride at MR4, and while it's not my preference to experience Master Rank for the first time this way, I'd say it would benefit the majority of people playing this way. However, if you do like playing the game at a slower pace, it's definitely worth it. There's enough new content to make the game challenging enough and fresh enough to make crafting lots of equipment a rewarding experience. That and the new gear is so good. I really don't think there is one definitive best armor set in early game. The builds you can make from even just default armor sets is honestly surprising. So those are my first impressions and recommendations at this point. I hope this video has helped anyone who hasn't purchased Sunbreak yet make an informed decision. And for anyone that has played the game, I hope this was entertaining and serves for a good entry point to discussion. So be sure to let me know whether you'll be buying Sunbreak below, and if you have it already, what do you think of it? I think it could be one of the best expansions yet, but I'd love to hear what you think in the comments below. Also, be sure to like the video and subscribe, it really helps me out a lot, and if you really want to go the extra mile, sharing the video with your friends helps even more. Anyway, I've been King Rob Rule, and I'll see you in the next video. See ya!